Hola, buenas tardes. Soy la abogada Brittany James y estoy aquí para contestar todas sus preguntas en relación de inmigración. Si tiene algunas preguntas sobre inmigración, puede poner sus preguntas en los comentarios y puedo tratar de contestar más preguntas que puedo hoy. Y puede poner sus preguntas en inglés o en español y puedo contestar las preguntas en cualquiera de los dos idiomas. So if you have any immigration questions for me, you can write any of your immigration questions in either English or Spanish, and I will try to answer as many of your questions as I can. Just remember that although I am an immigration attorney, I cannot give legal advice in this situation regarding what you should do in your specific immigration situation, but I can give general immigration information. But if you would like a legal opinion regarding your case, regarding your immigration situation, then you would need to call my office and you can schedule a consultation with me. Our office phone number is 772-539-8400. We do charge $200 for the consultation, which includes a screening appointment with my paralegal and then an appointment with me where I would review all of the information that you provided to my paralegal, ask any clarifying questions that I need, and I would give you a legal opinion regarding what I think that you can do in your case and what we would charge to represent you. So if you would like to schedule a consultation, you can call or you can text us at 772-539-8400. And again, para explicar esto en español, lo que estoy explicando es que puede poner cualquier pregunta que tiene en los comentarios, pero en este tipo de situación puedo dar solamente información en general de inmigración. No puedo dar a ustedes una opinión legal en qué debe hacer en su caso de inmigración. Si quiere una opinión legal en qué debe hacer en su situación, tiene que llamarnos para programar una consulta. Y nuestro número de teléfono es 772-539-8400. Y nosotros cobramos 200 por la consulta y eso incluye dos citas. Una cita primero con mi paralegal, donde ella hace muchísimas preguntas sobre todo su historial, toda su vida, su historia de inmigración y después una cita conmigo donde revisamos todo eso y hablamos sobre sus opciones y qué podemos hacer para ayudarle, ¿ok? Pero si tiene preguntas en general, puede escribir sus preguntas aquí en los comentarios y puedo contestar más preguntas que puedo. Y estoy ahorita aquí en vivo en Facebook, Instagram y TikTok en los tres lugares. So voy a recibir preguntas en esos tres lugares y contestar más preguntas que puedo aquí. Ok, tengo unas preguntas aquí en TikTok. So voy a tratar de contestar esos y unas preguntas en inglés. So voy a contestarlas en inglés primero y después puedo explicarles en español. All right, here's a question from Jude. After I marry, how long do I have to wait to apply for residency? We have been together for 3 years. So Jude, it's as far as a petition from your spouse. A petition can be filed as soon as you are married if they're a citizen or a resident. Now, as far as applying for residency, I would need more information to know if you actually qualify to apply for residency and whether you would be filing within the United States or whether you would be filing for an immigrant visa abroad. So I would need to know a lot more information. But if you would like to schedule a consultation to discuss the options more and discuss what you're eligible for, then I would be happy to speak to you in more detail in a consultation. So you can call us if you want to schedule that at 772-539-8400. And I don't know what state you're in, but I can represent clients in any states throughout the United States and also people that are outside the United States when it's related to U.S. immigration law, because immigration law is federal. Immigration attorneys can represent clients anywhere. It is not state specific. And we do handle, although my main office is in Florida, I do handle cases from clients in many different states. I have clients in California, New York, Texas. So it does not matter where you are. We can consult with you and I would be able to represent you and help you with your situation. All right, and I'm going to explain this in Spanish also briefly for everyone else. So la pregunta era, después de estar casado con un residente o ciudadano, ¿cuánto tiempo tiene que esperar para aplicar por la residencia? So, técnicamente por la petición no tiene que esperar, puede hacer la petición inmediato después de estar casado. Pero para aplicar por la residencia, eso depende en su situación. Necesito saber más información. Hay unas personas que sí califican para hacer la residencia aquí adentro de los Estados Unidos y quizás puede aplicar inmediato, pero hay otras personas que no pueden aplicar inmediato, que tienen otras complicaciones en su caso. So tengo que tener una consulta con la persona para ver realmente qué podemos hacer. ¿Ok? All right, and I have another question here from Oscar. My parents used farmers reform, but they weren't farmers. They used crooked lawyers, and they do have a social, but they got scared and left in 2014. They have multiple illegal entries, and I am a citizen. So Oscar, and basically they started the process, got a real social, but then got scared and never finished. So I assume that you're referring to the amnesty program that was done back in 1987, 88, during this time, and that they probably got a work authorization and maybe never got their residency. So I would need to know a lot more information to see what you can do to help them. And I see also that you're a U.S. citizen, so I'm assuming then that you'd like to petition for your parents to bring them back. So I would need to know what the dates were of their entries, whether they had any other issues. There may be some options for them. There may be options for them right now. There could possibly be options for them after they wait at least 10 years since their last departure, but that all depends on what the dates are of their entries. And I would likely want to see a copy of what's called their FOIA, which is a copy of the full record that immigration has on them so that I could review the application and also discuss it with them and confirm exactly what was done. But there could be options for them. So if you want to call us and schedule a consultation, again, our phone number is 772-539-8400. And if you schedule a consultation, then you can send whatever paperwork you guys have already ahead of time for me to review for the appointment. And then if we find that there's anything else that we need, then we can always open a case to request the documents from immigration from their old application so that I can review that before we make a decision on how to move forward. But yes, there may be options for them. So if you want to call us, then we can review everything and see what we can find. All right, and I have a question here from Serene. How is everything with the immigration process for my fiance to bring from Israel? So there have not really been any changes to the fiance visa process. I mean, for a little while, of course, the embassies were closed. Some of the embassies still are closed. So that has slowed down the process, but you would still, if you wanted to petition for him as your fiance, that could still be a possibility. I would recommend consulting with an immigration attorney first. You can discuss also the differences between filing for him as your fiance, or if you decided to marry him first and bring him here. To file for him as a fiance, you do have to show that you have met in person within the last 2 years. But there's no reason why you wouldn't be able to do that. So if you want to contact us, then we can talk about it more, talk about the different options and what we would need to get started, as well as the time frame. And our phone number is 772-539-8400. And I have a question here from Mel Anatomy. It says, I came here in 2013. Can I apply to DACA? I graduated from high school. Unfortunately, no. For DACA, the way that DACA is written, you had to have come here prior to June 15th of 2007. So if you came in 2013, you would not qualify, but maybe we can find another option for you. So you can always call us and schedule a consultation. We can review everything and see if we can find another solution for you. And I'm going to explain some of this in Spanish as well. Una de las preguntas que recibió es que yo vino aquí en 2013 si puedo aplicar para DACA. Y yo gradué de high school, de escuela. Afortunadamente no, por DACA tiene que probar que entró al país antes del 15 de junio de 2007. Por personas que entraron después de esa fecha, no califica para DACA. Nunca sabemos si esos reglas de DACA van a cambiar en el futuro, si van a extender y cambiar las fechas, pero como está ahorita, no tiene que probar que entró al país antes del 15 de junio de 2007. Y también que estuve aquí desde 2007 hasta ahorita. So no puede calificar. Okay. All right, and I have another question here. Any restriction when adjustment of status when you get back to the U.S. with TPS parole? So there was a recent case which stated that travel with advanced parole under TPS does not count as a parole, as a legal entry for purposes of adjustment of status. But this only applies to entries on advanced parole through TPS following a certain date. And I believe that it was a date in August. So I can give you that date in just a moment, I believe, because that is a new USCIS policy. Yes. So anyone, this is from matter of ZRZC, which applies to any TPS beneficiaries who departed and returned to the United States under advanced parole after August 20th of 2020. So if you travel prior to that date, then it would be under the previous law, and it would count as an inspection, admission, or parole for purposes of applying for adjustment of status. But any travel after August 20th, 2020 under TPS advanced parole does not count as a parole for purposes of applying for adjustment of status. Okay, so if you had already traveled prior, then it could still work as a parole for adjustment of status purposes, but any travel after August 20th, 2020 does not count. Okay, and a question here from Samantha Sanchez. How much does a consultation cost? Yes, we charge $200 for a consultation, and that includes a screening appointment first with my paralegal, where she will review all of your immigration history as well as your history here within the United States. She'll ask a lot of questions and possibly about your past also in your home country, and then a separate appointment with me where I will review all of that, ask any clarifying questions that I have, and review whatever your options are and explain the options and the cost involved if we were to represent you in your situation. So if you'd like to schedule a consultation, you can call us. Our phone number is 772-539-8400. Okay. Y la pregunta era de cuánto cobramos por una consulta. Nosotros cobramos 200 por la consulta y eso incluye una cita primero con mi paralegal donde ella hace muchas preguntas sobre toda su vida y ella escribe todas las respuestas. So yo puedo revisar antes de la consulta y después una consulta conmigo donde revisamos eso y puedo hacer más preguntas si tengo más preguntas y después puedo dar mi opinión legal en qué puede hacer en su situación y cuántos serían los gastos si nosotros vamos a ayudar en su caso, de representar en su caso, ¿ok? Y podemos representar clientes en todos los estados de los Estados Unidos. No importa si está cerca de nuestra oficina, podemos ayudar. Nosotros tenemos clientes en muchos estados y podemos hacer la mayoría de las cosas por correo electrónico, por teléfono y por correo. Ok, eso no importa dónde vives. Ok, tengo más preguntas aquí. De alguien aquí de Facebook, de Sandra Ramos. Abogada, ¿cómo puedo solicitar una visa de trabajo y cuánto debo permanecer en los Estados Unidos antes de solicitar residencia? So, Sandra, basado en su pregunta, no sé si usted está aquí dentro del país o fuera del país. Si está fuera del país y está hablando sobre una visa de trabajo, eso depende de su situación y hay diferentes tipos de visas de trabajo. Hay visas de trabajo que son para profesionales, para personas que tienen como un degree, sí, que fue a la universidad. Hay otros visas de trabajo que son para trabajar en el campo. So depende de qué tipo de visa está refiriendo. Si está aquí y si está aquí sin documentos, normalmente sus opciones no incluye la oportunidad de aplicar por una visa de trabajo, pero quizás un permiso de trabajo. Aquí depende de su situación. Si quiere programar una consulta y podemos hablar sobre cualquier opción que hay, puede llamarnos y programar una consulta. Y también en el mismo número de teléfono de la oficina, dice que es 772-539-8400. Con este mismo número de teléfono puede mandarnos mensajes de texto, puede llamarnos y también estamos en WhatsApp con el mismo número de teléfono. Puede comunicar con nosotros por estas maneras o también puede mandarnos un mensaje por Facebook o por Instagram. Okay. Si quiere una consulta, si puede comunicar con nosotros, si podemos programar la consulta. Okay. All right. Déjame ver las otras preguntas que tengo aquí en TikTok. Jenny is asking, I put in a petition for my husband about 5 years ago. About when will we hear anything? So Jenny, it's hard to say based on this. Let me see if you read anything else. So if you are a U.S. citizen or a legal permanent resident and you filed for your husband 5 years ago, at this point, you should have at least received something from immigration. It would be very rare for a petition to still be pending with immigration after 5 years, the petition itself. So I would say if that is your situation, you should definitely consult with an attorney. You can call me, send me copies of all your paperwork, and we can talk about what's going on with your case and what the next steps could be. Now, usually, so for example, if on the petition, if you put that your husband was going to be applying for an immigrant visa abroad outside of the United States, then once the petition was approved, they would have sent the petition to what's called the National Visa Center. Now, with the National Visa Center, from the time that they notify you and say that your case is ready to proceed to the next step, which is which through them would be scheduling an interview abroad and sending them the visa application, all these documentations they need for an interview abroad. If you don't communicate with them and respond to them when they're sending that correspondence, then after a year, they start the process of terminating the case. And if after another year, if you still haven't responded, then they will completely destroy the petition and you have to start from scratch. So I am a little bit concerned by your statement that it's been 5 years and when will you hear anything, because hopefully your case has not made it to that point to the National Visa Center and have been destroyed and needs to be restarted. But if you are not working with an attorney already, and especially if your husband is within the United States, I would highly recommend consulting with me or with another immigration attorney about his situation to make sure that you really understand what his options are and what the best solution is. I have seen situations where people have started a petition not understanding what the next step is. I've seen people on their way to scheduling an immigrant visa interview abroad and thinking that that was the best option for them and not realizing, one, that they needed a waiver of admissibility that could be filed prior to their departure, but they were not filing that. And if they left, then they could have been stuck outside of the United States for over a year or even more time. I've also seen situations where people were on that route to leave, and then I reviewed their case and I realized that they could actually adjust here within the United States. So I would highly recommend consulting with an attorney to review your paperwork, review all of his options, and make sure that you are on the best route for him. Okay. All right. And Serene, I see your question here. Can I marry my fiance in Israel and have a certificate from there? Would that work? So if you wanted to apply for him as your spouse, yes, you could. However, you may want to consult with an immigration attorney first to talk about the different options so that you can decide what is the best option for you. Sometimes bringing someone in as a fiance can be faster, but there are more steps involved with that process. If he comes in as a fiance, so first there's a petition process within the United States, and then he would have an interview abroad. And once he comes, then you would have 90 days to get married and file for his residency. and then he would wait to get his residency here. Now, if you go over there and you marry him first, then you would be applying for him as your spouse. You would file a petition here within the United States. Once that petition is approved, you would go through an interview process of scheduling the interview in Israel, and then he would come in actually as a legal permanent resident. So it would avoid that step of the entry and then the 90-day marriage and filing for the residency here. So it would be a one-step process instead of two. But if your main goal is to get him here as fast as possible, the fiancé visa may be the better option. So I would recommend that you consult with an attorney about all your options and make sure that you're making the best choice for you. Okay. All right, let me see what other questions I have here. All right, and I have a question here. Hello, I'm a green card holder since 2018. Can I bring my parents to the United States? So in order to apply for your parents to come to the United States as residents, you have to be a U.S. citizen. U.S. citizens can petition for their parents. As a green card holder, you could not. Now, in general, once you have your residency, you can apply for citizenship after 5 years being here, as long as you meet all the other requirements. If you're married to a U.S. citizen, or depending on how you got your residency, you may be able to apply for citizenship after 3 years. So it could be coming up the time frame for you to apply for citizenship, so then you could bring your parents. Now, if you just wanted them to come and visit, then of course they could apply and try to get visitor visas so that they can come here to visit you. But that would not actually require a petition from you. You could send them a letter inviting them to come and visit you, and they can apply for the visa. But tourist visas are difficult to obtain, especially depending on what country they're from. But once you're a U.S. citizen, then you could apply for them to come and obtain their residency. Of course, you can call us if you want to have a consultation and review their whole situation, make sure that they wouldn't have any issues with that process. But yes, in order to have that possibility of bringing them with a residency, you would need to be a U.S. citizen first. All right, and I have another question from Rose. How can I bring my two sisters quick? So if you're a U.S. citizen, yes, you could petition for your siblings. Now, the process of bringing siblings to the United States with a residency is not a quick process, and it depends on what country you are from. So to give you some examples here, for if you're from Mexico, immigration right now is currently working on petitions, sibling petitions that were filed back in 1998. So for those people, they have been waiting 22 years since the process was started for them to be able to proceed to the next step of the residency. For India, they're working on petitions from 2005. For the Philippines, they're working on petitions from 2002. For China, from 2006. And for all other countries other than China, India, Mexico, and the Philippines, for sibling petitions, they're working on petitions that were started back in 2006. So it does take several years to apply for your siblings for their residency. Now, if you would like to have a consultation and see, is there any other option for them? Is there any other way that they can come quicker? Of course, I would be happy to speak to you and to speak to your sisters and see if we can find a solution for them. But yes, a petition directly from you will take several years. Okay. All right, and I have a question on Facebook from Alex. How long to receive a driver's license and a green card? So Alex Rodriguez, this will depend on what type of case is being filed. Of course, driver's licenses obviously are state specific. So specifically in Florida, if someone is applying for their residency, in general, once the residency application is filed and we have the receipts from immigration, in most cases with those documents, you could go and apply for a driver's license. So that's just with the receipts from immigration. Now, not every state is like that, but in Florida, yes, usually with the receipts for the green card application, you can apply for your license. As far as getting the actual green card, it depends on which process we are applying under, and also the processing times of the office where the case is filed. So for example, here with our local office in West Palm Beach, in general, it takes, we'll say, between 6 months and a year to get an interview for for the residency when it's a case based on marriage or, some type of application where it's immediately available where you're filing for your residency. Now, if it is a case based on some type of abuse from a spouse or a child and marital problems, those types of cases typically do take longer. They're processed by a different office. They're not typically processed by the local office, the petition is never processed by the local office. Those cases do take longer for the residency, usually more around 2.5 to 3 years. But during that time, there would be a work authorization that could also be renewed, and at least in Florida, driver's license as well. So it depends on the case type, Alex. All right, and let me see what other questions. So I have a question here from C. Acevedo in TikTok. I'm on a 601A part. How long until I go to Juarez? Okay, so it is taking a very long time to get interviews in Juarez. So the National Visa Center, they are the ones that have to handle getting everything ready for the interviews in Juarez. And they will not actually start the process of scheduling you for an interview until your 601A is approved and until they have notifications the 601A is approved. In my experience, prior to COVID, because obviously COVID, the pandemic has changed everything, but prior to COVID, it was taking about a year from the time that the National Visa Center had everything until the interview was scheduled in Juarez. I presume that now it will be taking significantly longer. They're still working on rescheduling interviews that were canceled back in April when the embassy closed. The last that I heard, I believe, they're rescheduling those cases, and they are scheduling some cases that were what's called documentarily qualified back in May of 2019. So we may be looking at more like a year and a half from the time the 601A is complete and that everything is ready with the National Visa Center. But we will have to wait and see. I mean, that may change. It could take longer. It could be faster. Of course, if you don't already have an attorney, you can always consult with an attorney to see if they can find you another solution where maybe you could do things here instead of having to leave. That could expedite the process a little bit more. But yes, it will take quite a while until you're able to get your interview in Juarez. And I'm going to explain this in Spanish also. Ok, la pregunta que recibí aquí en TikTok en inglés es que estoy haciendo el 601A, el perdón, y cuánto tiempo va a tardar hasta que tengo que ir a Juárez. Y eso es una buena pregunta. Está tardando mucho tiempo para tener citas en Juárez. Antes de todo fue cerrado por la pandemia, estuve tardando como 1 año. Después que el 601A estuve aprobado y también después del Centro Nacional de Visas, tenía todo listo en su archivo por la entrevista, porque ellos tienen que preparar el caso antes de mandar el caso a Juárez. So, estuve tardando como 1 año. Ahorita ellos todavía están tratando de reprogramar las citas que fueran cancelados en marzo y abril por la pandemia. So, ellos tienen que reprogramar todas sus citas y después van a seguir de ahí. So, probablemente después de todo está listo, sí va a tardar por lo menos 1 año, pero probablemente más, no sé, si 1 año y medio, 2 años. So tarda mucho tiempo. So, si está en esta situación, debe hablar con su abogado si tiene abogado y puede preguntar si hay otra solución o puede consultar con un abogado o conmigo para hablar sobre su situación y ver si hay otra solución para hacer las cosas más rápido para hacerlo aquí. Pero si no, si tiene que esperar. Okay, afortunadamente sí, eso va a tardar mucho tiempo. Okay. Okay, I have a question here from Kasky in TikTok. Says, what should I do? My father is a resident, but I would like to get him his citizenship, or does he have to take the citizenship exam? I am a U.S. citizen. So if he's a legal permanent resident, in order to get his citizenship, he would have to file the application for naturalization, the N-400 application, and meet all of the requirements for that. The typical requirements he would are that he would need to be a resident for at least 5 years. He would need to show that he's never abandoned his residency, that he's been continuously here within the last 5 years. Now, it's okay if he's had brief travel outside of the United States, but no extended travel of more than 6 months. And that he's been a person of good moral character. But assuming he meets all the requirements, then he could apply for citizenship. It does not make a difference if you're a citizen or not. This would be something he would be filing for independently if he's a resident applying for naturalization. Now, typically for the application for citizenship, you do have to do the application in English and show that he can speak English and read English, and he would also have to do a civics exam where he would show that he knows U.S. history, U.S. history and government information. There's a list of 128 questions that he would need to study, and during the interview, he would have to answer at least 12 of 20 questions correctly. Now, if he does not speak English, in order to do the test in another language and to be exempt from the English test, he would need to show that he's at least 50 years old and he's been a resident for at least 20 years, or that he's at least 55 years old and has been a resident for at least 15 years. But otherwise, he would need to do the exam in English. Okay. All right. And let me see what other questions I have here. All right, I have a question here on TikTok from Maria Itzel. Says, I want to start my green card process. I'm in DACA. I was born in Mexico and arrived to the United States illegally, and I'm married to a U.S. citizen since February of 2020. So Maria, assuming that you only enter the United States once, it would likely be, I mean, you likely do have options to apply for your residency. Now, as far as whether you could apply here or if you would need to apply for the provisional waiver process and do an interview in Ciudad Juarez, I would need to know some more information. The information I would normally need to know in a consultation to determine the best option for you would be things like, how many times did you enter the United States? What dates did you enter? When did you obtain DACA? Did you obtain DACA prior to accumulating more than 6 months of unlawful presence here? Were you ever the beneficiary of a petition filed prior to April 30th, 2001? Or if your parents were? And also whether there were ever any type of issues or abuse in your marriage, marital problems. Knowing the answer to all those questions, then I could let you know whether I think that it would be best, or whether you have the option to file here, or whether you would be filing for an immigrant visa in Juarez, and also whether you would need a waiver of admissibility or not. So if you want to discuss everything in more detail and see what your options are, then you can call and schedule a consultation with me. We can go over everything and also talk about whatever costs would be involved if we were to represent you in that case. But most likely there is an option for you, but it's just a matter of how we would be handling it. Okay. Right. And again, if anyone has any general questions, you can ask them either in English or in Spanish, and I can answer in either one. Quiero explicar de nuevo, si tienen algunas preguntas de inmigración, puede poner sus preguntas en inglés o en español. Puedo contestar sus preguntas en cualquiera de los dos idiomas, ¿ok? Y recuerda que en esta situación puedo contestar solamente preguntas en general. No puedo dar una opinión legal sobre su caso. Si quiero una opinión legal sobre qué debe hacer en su situación de inmigración, tiene que llamarnos para programar una consulta, ¿ok? Y la razón por eso es que normalmente hay muchas preguntas que tenemos que hacer antes de decidir qué podemos hacer por alguien. Tenemos que tener información sobre todas sus entradas y salidas, sobre su récord criminal, sobre su historial de inmigración. Normalmente hacemos preguntas sobre todos sus trabajos, si tuve problemas en el trabajo con alguien que estoy viviendo. Hay muchas cosas que tenemos que saber antes de dar una opinión sobre cuál es el mejor proceso por usted y cómo podemos ayudarle. Pero si tiene preguntas, puede escribirlos y puedo tratar de contestar las preguntas, pero las respuestas van a ser en general. No puedo decir, ok, sí, usted debe hacer eso o eso en su caso, ¿no? Pero puedo dar información en general. Puede entender cómo funciona la inmigración mejor, cuáles son unas de las opciones, pero no puedo decir exactamente qué debe hacer en su caso sin una consulta conmigo, donde podemos hablar en privado y donde podemos tomar más tiempo para revisar toda su situación personal. ¿Okay? Si tiene preguntas en generales, se puede escribir sus preguntas aquí y puedo tratar de contestar todas sus preguntas. Tengo más preguntas aquí en TikTok. Here's a question says, I got married in 2015 to a U.S. citizen veteran. How long until I get my green card? So being married to someone in the military or a veteran does make things a little bit easier, especially if you had entered the United States without inspection previously, if you had entered illegally, and now you're married to someone who was in the military or is currently in the military, then in most cases, assuming that you meet all the other qualifications, then you can possibly apply for what's called a parole in place, which is basically the equivalent of a legal entry to the United States. That parole in place also provides protection from deportation, work authorization, at least in some states. You can also obtain a driver's license with the copy of the parole. But as long as you meet all the other requirements and you don't have any other complications in your situation, then you could possibly get a parole in place and then apply for your residency. And then as far as how long it would take, it would depend on the processing times for your local office, both for the parole in place and for the residency. I can say, based on the office that I deal with most frequently, although I have dealt with many other offices with immigration throughout the United States, but based on the office that I deal with most frequently, it usually takes a few months for the parole to be granted. And then once the application for the residency is filed with the petition, usually less than a year. Okay, so I would say a year to a year and a half for that process. But that can vary a lot depending on your local office. There's some local offices that are typically taking over 2 years just for the residency. Okay, so it all varies depending on your local office. But I would definitely suggest that you consult with an attorney to review all the details of your situation and talk about your options in more detail, and also based on what your local office is, then they could give you a better idea on the processing time. And of course, if you want to consult with me, then you can call my office and schedule a consultation. Again, our phone number is 772-539-8400. All right, and I have another question here. Just currently, if you got caught at the border around 2007, got fingerprints done and sent back, but not deported, no other charges, is there a chance for a green card, or do we have to wait? Different lawyers say different things. One lawyer said exclusion is what happens, not deportation. So I would need to know some more information to see what the options are, and also depending on how this particular person was going to be applying for their residency. So I will say that for many people from Mexico, especially depending on what year it happened, and I will say around that time, I believe they were still doing this frequently. Sometimes Border Patrol would give what's called a voluntary return, which is a very informal process where they document the person's entry to the United States without inspection. They take fingerprints, they usually take a picture, and then they send them back, but it does not count as a deportation. But sometimes also immigration can give deportations at the border. Usually during consultation process, I would go through a series of questions to try to come up with my best idea, my best interpretation of what happened, whether it was a deportation or not, based on whether the person was entering without inspection or trying to enter through the line, if they were trying to enter with false documents, also depending on what year it happened, depending on whether they were told that they could not return for a certain amount of time. Often when it's a voluntary return, the officers sometimes are very friendly. We'll say, okay, well, good luck. I will see you tomorrow. Hasta mañana. Buena suerte. And it's not a deportation, but sometimes there are deportations done at the border. So it really depends on the facts of their case. So that's something that I could talk to them to try to get my best idea of whether it was a deportation or not. There are also ways that we can send their fingerprints to immigration and request copies of all of their records and try to confirm exactly what did happen at the border, because usually those records are available. But I will say I have helped lots of people in these situations that have been apprehended at the border. Um, and I have helped some people even that were deported at the border and some that just had voluntary returns. But I do have many clients that have had that type of situation. But I would need to know a lot more about this person to know on what basis are they applying and also to confirm whether that was deportation or not. So I wish I could give you an exact answer, but really this is one of those situations where I would have to have a consultation with them. I would need to ask a lot more questions, and then we could evaluate what their possible options are. But the short answer is possibly they could apply for the residency, but I need to know more. Okay. All right. And I have another question here. Will the consultation fee go towards the total cost if you handle our case? Yes. Like I said, we do charge $200 for the consultation, but if we decide to open a case, if you decide that you want to hire us, then that fee counts as a credit towards the total cost of the case. So yes, you would not lose that money. It would count towards the cost of the case. All right, and let me see what other questions there are here. Okay, there's a question from Tisak Valdez. How long till you receive anything from immigration after initial docket application is sent? So I will say in general, it usually takes 3 to 4 weeks to receive a receipt notice from immigration for any application. I do know that in lots of applications, they have been behind lately because of COVID. I also don't know if they may take a little bit longer than usual with the initial DACA applications because that's a process that has just come back. So I can't tell you for sure, but I would say the average time is usually 3 to 4 weeks, but yes, it could be a little bit longer. Right, and let me see what other. And again, if you wrote me a question and I have not answered your question yet, you can write it to me again in TikTok and Instagram. The way that I receive the questions, they're all together, and it's also mixed in with showing me when people have joined the live video. So sometimes it's hard for me to catch all the questions. So if I have not answered your question and you're still on, then you can go ahead and type your question again, and I will try to get to as many of them as I can. And again, you can ask your questions in either English or Spanish, and I can answer in either language. Si hizo una pregunta, si escribió su pregunta aquí en TikTok o Instagram o Facebook y yo no contesto su pregunta todavía y usted está aquí todavía, puede escribir su pregunta de nuevo y puedo tratar de contestar su pregunta. En TikTok y Instagram, como funciona aquí, es que tengo todas las preguntas mezclado con notificaciones de cuando personas están viniendo para ver el video en vivo. So a veces no puedo ver todas sus preguntas, ¿ok? So si tiene preguntas y no contestó, por favor, escribe su pregunta de nuevo y puedo tratar de contestarlos. Pienso que voy a estar contestando preguntas por como 10 minutos más o menos. So si tiene preguntas, si puede escribir sus preguntas de nuevo aquí. And Maria Vargas, I see you're coming, your best immigration lawyer I've worked with. Thank you. Thank you very much. I love hearing things like that. I love working with my clients, and I love helping everyone, and I appreciate that. Thank you. All right. A question from Hector Menjivar. If you didn't sign up for selective service, does that hurt my citizenship process? So when you file for citizenship, there is a question on the application of whether you've registered for selective service, which is something that men have to do between the ages of 18 and 26 if they are residing in the United States. If you are over 31, meaning that that it has been at least 5 years since the time that you were required to register for selective service, then it does not matter whatsoever. It will not be counted against you at all for moral character purposes. Or if you're married to a U.S. citizen, you only have to show moral character for the last 3 years. Then if you're over 29, I mean, it's been over, over 3 years then since you had to file, then it does not matter at all. If you were 18 to 26 within the last 5 years and you did not register, then you will have to provide a statement to immigration explaining why you did not register, and they will consider that when they're determining whether they think that you are a person of good moral character. Okay, but if you are over 31, then it does not make any difference. You don't need to worry about it. You don't need to be concerned. Okay. All right, let me see what other. Okay, Stanley has asked, what are the options if you lose I-20 status for 3 years? So if your I-20, if you entered on a student visa and your I-20 has expired, then technically you are not in valid status anymore. So as far as what your options are to fix that, I would need to know a lot more information about your situation, and that's something that you should definitely schedule an appointment with an attorney. You can contact me if you want to schedule an appointment with me. I can review your paperwork and we can talk about any possible options that you might have to adjust your status or to apply again for a visa. But that is definitely not something that I would be able to answer in this type of setting with only that information. I would need to know a lot more. Okay. So if you want to have a consultation with me about that, then you can call us at 772-539-8400. Okay. And again, if anyone has any other questions that I did not answer, you can write your questions for me again. I will be on for just a few more minutes. And you can write your questions in either English or Spanish. And I will try to get to as many of them as I can. I'm just going to be on for a few more minutes here, and then I will have to get off for the day. But again, if you have more questions, then you can write me your questions here. And to explain again, so if you, in these types of situations, when I'm doing a live on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, I can answer very general questions and provide general information about immigration and about different types of immigration processes, about new immigration laws and things that are going on with immigration. But I cannot give someone a legal opinion about what they should do in their particular case. It's just not possible with only very little information. I know a lot of people think sometimes, well, they just have one question, and if I could just answer that one question for them, then they'll know what to do. But unfortunately, with immigration, it is never one question. There's a lot of information that we need to really give an opinion about what someone can do in their case. Immigration is very complicated. In order to give someone advice about what they can do, I need to know all the information about all of their entries to the U.S., any types of encounters with immigration. I always need to know about their previous marriages, a lot of information about their previous relationships, their children. Usually we ask questions about anyone that someone has lived with, about their jobs, any type of previous abuse situations. There's a lot of information that we need to know. So in this situation, I can give some very general information, but if I ever answer your question, that it does not mean that I'm telling you what you should do in your case. If you want a legal opinion about what you should do in your situation, then you would need to call and schedule a consultation with me. We can review everything. I can review any documents that you have and give you my opinion, a true legal opinion on what your options are, whether you have any immigration options, and also what we would charge to help you with that. And again, what we charge for the consultation process is $200. And if you did schedule a consultation with me and then you decide that you do want to hire us and hire me to represent you, then that $200 counts as a credit against the full legal fees involved in the case. So if you do want a legal opinion about your situation, call us. I would be more than happy to work with you and see what we can do to help you. And again, our phone number is 772-539-8400. You can call, text, WhatsApp, Facebook message, Instagram. You can get a hold of us anywhere if you want to schedule a consultation. And I, of course, as always, whenever I'm on live, you can come on and ask your general questions. But yes, for a legal opinion, you would need to schedule a consultation with me where we can talk in private. And I'm going to explain this also in Spanish for those that are watching in Spanish. So recuerda que en estas situaciones puedo dar solamente información en general sobre inmigración y sobre los leyes de inmigración. Pero siempre si quiere tener una opinión legal sobre qué debe hacer en su caso, tiene que hablar conmigo en privado por una consulta. Si quiere programar una consulta conmigo, puede llamarnos al 772-539-8400. También en ese mismo número de teléfono podemos recibir mensajes de texto y estamos en WhatsApp con este número, o puede mandarnos un mensaje por Facebook o un mensaje por Instagram. So, hay muchas maneras que puede comunicar con nosotros si quiere programar una consulta, ¿ok? Pero siempre si quiere hacer sus preguntas en generales sobre inmigración, puede verme en vivo cada miércoles a las 5 de la tarde Eastern Time, o a veces otros días también, pero siempre cada miércoles sí estoy en vivo, ¿ok? Pero si quiere programar una consulta, tiene que llamarnos y me gustaría así trabajar con usted y ver cómo podemos ayudarle, ¿ok? So eso va a ser todo para hoy. Hasta la próxima semana o hasta el próximo vez que tengo tiempo para estar vivo. So tengo feliz nuevo año y ojalá que voy a ver a ustedes pronto o que podemos hablar por una consulta y podemos representarle y ayudarle con su caso. Ok, tenga buena noche.